do a nice set review for set 6. Because all the cards are out there, she's been out for a little bit now. But I was waiting for them all to come out because sometimes there's like a last minute, wow, that's going to shape the meta card. And if we got that, it would have just meant all my predictions made no sense. Even though my predictions are probably all going to be wrong and make no sense anyway. I think maybe the only one that was right was I said Pete is really good and ended up being very good. But I think anyone with eyes could have seen that. So yeah, I've managed to pick up the ones that I think are very good for blue steel. And then I've gone for cards as well that I think are just generally going to be quite good in the meta. We're going to start seeing them, so we're going to have to play against them and stuff like that. And I've done it the amazing way of going through Lorcana Player's website. Awesome player, awesome guy, awesome website as well. And I've just basically picked them out as tabs on my computer screen. So we'll just go through them one by one. Starting off with um, Alice, which I someone described Alice to me as Alice can be a tool that allows you to play cards that weren't be able to play before, and I think that's really cool because Alice can be used as a tool to protect anything that would have died to a Brawler Medusa. So if you can get her established and then play the thing you want to play, I think it's really cool. You could even, I mean, the majority of people are looking at Tamatoa as the thing that you protect, but I think we can look outside of the box. If we're giving it ward, it could be like the blue legendary Sisu. Someone played told me this, and I'm really sorry I forgot who it was, but it was a really cool idea. But yeah, things like the legendary blue Sisu, that's a 2/4 that would have just died to Brawl. You can now keep it alive for a little bit longer. Of course, Tamatoa, and of course, was mentioned was Mufasa as well. I mean, that's two uninkables working quite in tandem, but I think that's fine. You're now saying that my Mufasa won't be a single target removed, so as long as you ramp to it before B prep, you at least will get a turn of Mufasa, and maybe just having another turn of resetting ink will be enough for you to say you got value out of the Mufasa. And if she sticks as well, you can do it again. Maybe you don't need to do it again because you've just got so much value out of the card. But I think what she can be is a very good tool for us. And when we're deck building and we're like, I really want this card to work. Let's just another example is because it's a new card is the Baymax card, the 2/6 that will remove it will heal something and you gain lore based on it. You'd be like, I really want this to stick. I don't know why you want it to stick. Just go with me on this one. Well, we can set up an Alice first, and then we can keep the Baymax alive from an easy targeted red removal. But also as well, we could keep, say if we wanted Tragic Beast to survive a turn just for the card draw, we can now keep it alive from a Zeus or just any like ping damage. So I think it's a really good tool, and I think it will enable us to play a lot differently and not new cards. But again, as it's the first week, if you looked at any of the lists I put on Twitter, I'll probably put them in the description as well if I remember to. I think standing by herself, she doesn't do much. Well, she does. She's a 1/4 quest for 2, but I think you can um, whenever this character quests another chosen character, yours gets plus 1 against ward. Yeah, so I'll just make sure I read it 100% correctly. But it will enable us to, yeah, it gives other stuff ward. It will enable us to just play cards that we might have ruled off because of easy removal and whatnot in past sets, which I think is a really cool thing. But I'm going to stop blabbering about the card. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool card that's a tool. But maybe don't build a deck around it. Build a card around a certain deck that you think is going to die easily, and then put Alice in there to protect it. Wreck-It Ralph is another one that I've sort of been quite excited for. It's going on TCG Player for $40 right now. That's mad. I quite excited for it. I want proof that it's going to work very well. That's sort of my only gripe with the card. I think it's threatening enough to an RP player or any player who's going to spam locations that they might think twice about it once he's on the board setup. The only real removal I can think is an Elsa, turn it sideways and then run something into it, the purple Elsa. You probably wouldn't play into steel. If you would just play it as a body on the board, but most of the times I assume you want to quill it away. 4/4 is just a good stat, so once it turns sideways, it will trade evenly with something. So you're going to gain 5 lore, remove a location, and then it will trade with something quite nicely. Anything besides a Maui, I'd assume. So overall, I'm just quite impressed by the stats of the card. But yeah, I think in practice, having another 6 cost uninkable, because I still want to be running aerial, I don't know where it fits entirely. And the idea of it can remove locations and items, and then it can also, in that matchups where you don't need it and you couldn't quill it away, you could still play it, pop your own Porp score and gain 5 lore. I think that's really cool. That's why I'm quite impressed by it. But yeah, I think versus RP, the matchup the way it goes right now is they will put like Flynn Sisu or Chernobog on the board, and you want to ramp into a Tinkerbell to control the board. If you were to ramp and play this, you wouldn't really be able to control the board and deal the location that they threaten at the same time. So maybe it is not the best. If you could go Tinkerbell into Wreck-It Ralph, it's cool. It's just this thing of I'm trying to find where it fits in the deck and where I think it fits nicely. What it does, I think, is great, but just finding where it fits, finding the direction of the meta. We're seeing a lot of these cool location decks, so just having a very good location answer card might be good if like two out of the three, or like three decks out of the meta that you see have locations in them, say RP, this new location deck, and then Purple Steel or whatever. It'd be cool to be like, hey, I can put this in if I'm going to a location heavy room. Say like you're going to a store champs and you know everyone's on location based decks, you can put Wreck-It Ralph in and you could take it out and put something else in if you didn't want it. There's kind of the same way we have done with Rise of Titans and Cusco and Hideaway. We only put them in if we're really fearing locations, otherwise we take them out. And the same way sort of Argus and Broom have been done. You sort of tech them in and out depending on what you expect to see. So in a sense, I guess it's another tool card, the same way that Alice is, and it's just nice to know that we have more cover. And like, say we're 2 weeks into the meta and we are just getting smashed by locations, we're like, well, we do have these new answers for it and these new options with things like Wreck-It Ralph. So I think just overall the card's quite cool. Being a legendary, I don't think it's one I'm going to get straight away unless I pack one. I might try it in a deck, but yeah, I think it really interests me, and I think it's a nice to have another answer for locations. It can break the items, but I wouldn't use it as a dime answer because at this point, blue still just doesn't really answer dimes. Um, this is another card I'm just like really, really liking a lot is the Calhoun. Calhoun. Um, I just think it's really cool. I think the stats are really cool. I think it's basically a SME. It's a 3/3. The resist sometimes makes it even better. So we can trade for something, not take any damage, like trade for something that's got one attack, kill it, turn it sideways, and then it won't die till I let the Storm Rage on. So I think that's really cool. You know, we've got a lot of use there. Just having more 3/3s is awesome. I have tried to slide it into a list, but because I still want to use the Chicha, because she was just proven good card draw, I wasn't really able to fit her in anywhere because I think I was up to like 20 uninkables on my list. So I've been trying the Jim Hawkins that I'll get onto in a sec. But overall, I think this is really cool. And the best thing to be doing whilst you're fighting an aggro board is gaining lore yourself, especially as what you really tend to do against aggro is control their board for a bit, get an aerial on the boards, get your lore to 10, find dime, turn sideways, tap the aerial. If you can just be gaining that lore whilst you're doing the trades, I think that's an awesome thing. And I think maybe blue still won't use this card as much, but I think maybe this card will just see a lot of play, just overall because the stats are just awesome and just really good. I can see green still using it, especially as they always been a deck that it's very hard for them to close the game out sometimes. They can lock you completely out of the game, but then they have to start turning sideways. If they could already be getting lore in the earlier turns with their trades, that's awesome for them. I mean, yeah, green still needs more overpowered cards, and it won't die to let the Storm Rage on. It would be very awkward for them to remove this card. So against other steel decks, that's awesome as well. So yeah, I think there's loads of benefits. I think this card's really awesome. I generally want to try my hardest to find room for it in my blue steel because it's one I really want to be playing in set 6. But I think this card will be around. We have to basically keep our eyes on it. Gantu was another one I've picked. I think just overall stats wise, just he's an he's a decent dime target. The body on the board, he's never going to be brawled or Medusa unless they ice block it, which is just so awkward for them. If you play it on curve, it's awesome. It just turns sideways and trades with anything. 4 damage is nice. That's the same as what Chiempo can do for us. So overall, I think this card's really cool. It is just going to die to a Zeus, and even with what's he called? Cogsurf down, he's even more susceptible to just steel damage, but I think that's not really the point of him. He's just a really cool quester, decent attack, and he's inkable. I think he does an all-round good job for that 5-drop slot, and I don't think I'd be surprised if you see a lot of blue steel players trying this card out, especially as you could play on curve or you could play and sing it, and if it survives, you know, he would just be gaining you 4 lore a turn or something like that, and that's a pretty good clock to start putting on the board, especially if you went Smee into Gantu and you've got 6 lore on board, you know. I think that's really cool. So yeah, I definitely think this card's worth testing out. Right now, what I'm struggling to find is stuff sticking on the board, and that's why I went to a 4/7 Chiempo, especially in my wheel list. So maybe I won't be using this card if the meta is going as fast as it is right now and everything's just dying. But if not, I will definitely make sure to try this card out. I think it's really cool and it's one I really want to get a playset of. Probably you play as a 2 off the same way you would Chiempo. So maybe you could even try just taking the Chiempo and trying it in and seeing where that gets you. It might end up being horrible when you just take it out again and try a different 5 drop, but I definitely think a lot of Blue Steel players are going to be attracted to the card and want to try it out. And in Green Steel as well, I think it's pretty good. And in Steel Song as well. I mean, I don't know in Steel Song, maybe they've got better 5 drops than this, but as something just turns sideways, I think it's really cool. Gaining 4 lore, they've just got more big body questers on the board. That's really cool for them. You could play it with the Pete and then guarantee 5 lore because the Pete would quest for 5, quest for 1, and then this would quest for 4. So yeah, I think it's a card you definitely have to see around, and we're just gonna have to try and kill it with steel removal, maybe 2 fire the cannons on it. This is Jim. This is Jim. Yeah, everyone knows Jim. I don't know why I'm introducing him like it's a first date or something. Jim Hawkins, the 2 drop. I think it's really cool. It gains the. I got it wrong. I thought that willpower stacked, and I was like, oh, that's such a crack card. I still think it's very good. Getting if you on 3 when you quill and put something in the inkwell, you can now hit something, and you have a 4/4 that attacks. The only problem I found is the scenario where I tried to use it recently in testing was you buff it, kill a daisy, it turns sideways, it has 1 damage on it, then Smee hits back for 3, so it just removes it. And that's just not great because the card actually has no like snapback. So once it does its trade, it's not turned sideways with a lot of willpower and threatening. It's just basically gonna just be a free trade for them. So he's a bit of a rocket, and it's a bit awkward when to know when to use him. But I still got some faith in the card being very good. Having a 4/4 on the board that's a 2 cost is kind of cool, and its requirement is basically what we're going to be doing up to 10 ink anyway, so it's fine. As long as you hit that quill, even if you hit the Mickey, you can get it on that turn, and if not, he's a 2/4, which is kind of lackluster at that point. But we're not aiming to miss ink, so I think he's got a lot of potential. It's just on the snapback, the sort of thing if a goat was to trade with something that has less than 3 willpower, and then it's exerted sideways, and then they'll have to trade into it, and it gets a nice trade there because it's done 4 damage and 4 damage again. But with Jim, because it's all challenger damage, it doesn't really work out that well. But I think the card's got some potential. I'm really excited to try it out, and I think I know that's just over explaining my list. I just think the card's got potential, and I really want to keep trying it. Sale. This is the card I think like anyone is just basically told to like, and I think that's with good reason. Even if you're sort of not that into deck building or not that into understanding ramp cards, it does a lot. I think it's a really good card. Of course, when I've tried it in testing, this is just going to be my silly little brain. I miss Mickey or a tipper. I miss getting a body on the board as well. But overall, the card draw is awesome. The fact that the ink comes in readied means that you can play a Porp or a Fire the Cannons on that turn as well. And if you top deck this card later on in the game, like you can just use it to cycle compared to the issues with Tipper and Mickey is if you're going to draw it later on in the game as a top deck, it's like, and this card is useless and I'm going to lose such a bad tempo swing on this turn. But at least with Sale, it's draw a card, and even if the next card's worthless, you can ink that as well. So most of the time you're just doing it to cycle the cards because you don't have to do the it's a May on the additional card being ramped. So it has so much potential to it. I think it's really awesome. But again, yeah, I'm just missing having a body on the board. But then again, I had to go from playing with a wheel in my deck to not a wheel in my deck. So it just the way you have to learn the game. But overall, just everything this card does is insane. I think every Sapphire deck will play it. Right now at this point, we have 8 Porpsicles, Visions of the Future, and Sail. Our deck has so much like cycle cards, so we can just basically get to exactly what we want every turn, and we can play this on curve as well because we'll be ramping. So I just think overall it's just a really cool card. And definitely, I think there's no debate that going into the week 1 of the set, every Sapphire deck will just be trying this card out and have it in their list. So yeah, just expect this card for sure. This is one I think I added because everyone keeps mentioning to add it, but overall I don't really care. Oh, I don't want to say that. No, I do. I just think it doesn't really work in standard blue steel or what we know to be blue steel right now, because it puts your ramp in your opponent's decision. In a more aggressive aggro version, it'd be really cool because if you're just going to go 2 questers, like maybe you go Smee, you play like yeah, you play Smee on two, then you play this, and you've got two questers. Now they have to deal with it, otherwise you get four law a turn. But if they give you the ramp, you could maybe hold back a card that's like a six drop or a five drop, and then play that the following turn. So they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. There's no healthy way to deal with this card. I really like that, but I think overall in the standard blue steel, what we usually see, I just, yeah, I don't see much use in it. Just an uninkable that I'd probably tend to not want to put on the board. Even later on in the game, I don't really know. They'd probably just kill it later on because they don't really care about the ramp if you're already at like 6 or 7 or 8 ink. So yeah, the card's got some potential in, I think, alternative versions of blue steel. But what we know is standard blue steel, I'm not overly convinced by the card. But it's a cool card, and I've definitely got my eyes on it for people who are a bit more creative with their deck building. Prepare your bot. Like I mentioned, this card's just awesome. I love this card, but yet again, I haven't found anywhere to put it in. You'd have to be making these like crazy OTK dime aerial 4x aerial, 3x maybe 2x dime, and then just put a bunch of these in, and then like entirely your deck is just scrying and finding that combo, and then you have to hope they don't peat you. So I think it's really cool. Maybe you could try it as like a 2x, like just for now, like if you could find the room, just 2x it in there and say like, oh, actually on Quill as well, this has been quite useful, so I can keep using it. And then for the dime finish or the aerial to gain, like if you have a dime and an aerial on board and it's got the requirements to do the 5 law, like that's 15 law, that's insane, and you're only paying one extra to do that. Well, actually, sorry, you'd be paying three extra because you have to use the dime again. But I just think, yeah, it's really cool. It has so much potential. It's like a card that's actually excited me, which I don't really get in TCGs much. I just look for like really just dumb stats basically. But I think this card's really awesome and it really excites me. And yeah, I don't think I'm the one to find this OTK deck, but I'm excited to see people who do. And Oswald, I think it just honorable mention at this point with some of these cards. I'm not a fan of the Oswald deck. I think what will happen is, as I've seen it played in testing, is you'll have like a game where it just pops off and it just goes insane and it just gets everything you need. It's just item, quill into dime, and then you've got like a dime on turn, whatever. And I just think it's a really cool card like that. I think you can pop off. I think the majority of your games, it's going to be you miss him on two. I think I'd assume you play him on two. I don't know when else you'd play him, or you miss the card, and then you've just your deck is just you're just drawing items that don't do anything, or you do get him set up, and then he just bottom decks all your towers, and then never gives you a dime, never gives you any items that you want, or you don't get the air aurora that I assume you need because that gives you scrying set up. And it just feels like a lot of work to set up for you'd have these amazing one-off games, but then the majority of the time it wouldn't work. And I think in regular blue steel, because you're not focusing, you have got the items, you've got like 12 or 14 items, but I don't think you're focusing in hard enough to value the Oswald. And overall, Chicha gives you one card draw. I just think Chicha does a better job. I'm saying you play him on two because I don't understand when else you'd play him. Like, I guess you could do other things on two and then throw him out later on. But I'd assume you'd want to play him on two, then Quill and start getting some work done. But do you play him on six with Aurora and then try and get some scrying done? I don't know. I overall just not fully impressed by the card. I think it's cool. I think it's fun, but I just not overly sold on it, and I wouldn't want to make a deck solely featured around it. But I'm sure people will. I'm sure we'll see lots of fun things, and I'm sure I'm going to play at Store Champs or a Swiss event somewhere, and someone's just going to absolutely smash me with Oswald popping off. I know that's going to happen. That always does. But for me, yeah, I just don't think I've got much thought into the card. And Baymax is the last one. Just a decent body. I mean, he's one off what Robin Hood would be, and we get to heal things like Smee, or we get to do some trades and then heal up. So overall, I don't think it's that bad. And again, like I say, you could keep it alive with the Alice card if required. I don't really know where it fits in. I don't think you just plonk it in and take out a Chiempo, because right now Chiempo does a very good job of having 4 attack. So if you take that out and just replace it with Baymax, I don't think you're in a great spot. But overall, I think the card's got some potential, and I think you could see some different ways to build Blue Steel. Maybe being a bit more aggressive and getting a lot of earlier stuff on the board. Utilizing cards that want damage taken off them, like Smee, of course. But overall, yeah, I don't know where the card lands. I just think it's very interesting. It's worth mentioning. I'm not saying go out and buy a playset, but if the card spikes one day, maybe if you pack one, hold on to it. It's already holding a giant value. I don't know what UK dollars is, US dollars is to pounds, but that looks like a lot. But yeah, I think it has some potential, but right now it seems like locations are being hyped very much, and aggro decks are being hyped very much. So just I'm really undervaluing anything that doesn't have a strong attack power, a strong willpower. So yeah, I've just sort of undervalued him a little bit, but I could see him having potential. But yeah, as I say, I really want cards that have high willpower, and I want to plonk them on the board, and I want to be able to do aerial dime and just not worry about them racing and beating me. And I don't think Baymax does that for me very much here. Um, so yeah, we're gonna start with looking at the cards now that are not blue steel adjacent. I'm assuming I could call it that. But I just think are really cool. I think Lilo the Escape Artist, like any aggro player, will read that and go, "That's really fun. I want to put that in my deck." So I'm definitely for the first week you're going to see that. Um, the thing is that you play it and it comes exerted. I guess if you just have a two challenger, or you can put a grab your swords or something like that just to deal with it every turn, it's fine. It's just like basically they're going to tax you. Maybe it gets a bit out of hand if they're going to get two or three or four on the board. But overall, I don't know. I think as an aggro deck, there's no reason why you wouldn't run this card. Um, but yeah, especially if you were to play it in Steel Song as well, because when you wheel, it will most likely end up in your discard, and then you're going to get a free Lilo that can be popped on the board. And the two law is just something that means it has to be dealt with on top of everything that Steel Song already does. So yeah, I definitely think people are going to try this out, and we're just going to see if like the other decks sort of react enough. Um, with the sort of the way they're going to build their lists. I don't know if RP can keep up with another thing they have to hit every turn. But I know blue steel, we can always add more steel removal in and just get more Tinkerbell and Simbas and stuff like that, and just really overwhelm the board. Or even if we can go, right, they're too overwhelming, we just need to race them. So I think we're going to see this everywhere. But I'm yet to be. I'm on the level of cautious that if it's ever any good. I'd imagine if turn one, like you could able to farm a bunch of these in your hand with like a Rapunzel, no, sorry. Before you wheel, you could farm a bunch of these in your hand with a Rapunzel heal, then sing a whole new world, and then like dump three of these in your discard, and then the next turn you just get three of these put out on board, for free. And they're only going to have so many be prepared and stuff like that, before they're just going to keep coming back, aren't they? Or they're going to have so many grab your swords and be prepared before they actually stick on the board and get to turn sideways. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting card, and we're definitely going to see it right at the start. Bend to my will. Of course, blue green is sort of being hyped quite a bit. I don't know why green still would ever use this. Maybe green purple. I'm not a green purple deck builder, and I never will be. Um, I don't know why I say it like that, but yeah, I don't know where this lands, but I definitely think there is a lot of players out there thinking this looks really cool. Um, Especially if you could try and find a way to have card draw on your board. You could play this, then draw cards from your hand. So like if you had a Port Hiram set up, and then you could do this. Or if you had a Prince John set up and you played this, you would discard both hands and then you get the draw of the Prince John. I believe that's how that would work. So I definitely see it has a lot of potential, and I think because of the 7 cost action, it would have to be blue green that was utilizing this card, because I can't see green still going to 7 ink and then spending that turn playing this. They just want to be doing other things, especially as green still focuses on getting you that discarded very much earlier on in the game. They're not going to sit around until turn 7 to play this. Whereas blue green, they can skip a bunch of turns and get it on like turn 5 or whatever, if they use their ramp properly. And if they could get a Prince John set up in between that, happy days, and that's like a lot of value they're going to get from that game. So I definitely think this card's going to be around. I've definitely think there are people who are looking at this card and going, I want to build a deck focusing on this. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Don't know if it's going to shape the meta. Maybe not. But yeah, it's very interesting. Maybe even yellow green could just have this as a be all end all card. I don't know. I'm just really talking rubbish now at that point. But yeah, it's very interesting, and I'm sure that's excited a lot of people when they've seen that card. This card is broken. I think it's probably insanely one of like the best cards they've printed in so long, and that's exactly what Green needed. They needed more good evasive cards, so they gave us one that's just nuts. Especially if you pair it with something like Ursula, and then you're able to sing strength on a Hiram or a Tower or something like that, and then you just play Go-Go and get yourself, between 5 and 7 lore based on what you use it on. I think the card is just utterly bonkers. Even green purple can use it. They can run a goat into something. The goat could die, and then they play Go-Go, and then they just gain a bunch of lore. Like they could gain 5 lore from that interaction, and then they could finish off the thing that they ran the goat into with something else if they're doing their maths correctly. Um, I just think the card's nuts, and basically what's going to happen is because you can use it on play. Um, when you play this character, you may pay 2 to gain lore equal to the. Or, yep. So it's used on play, and it's just too much. I think what we're gonna have to do as players is basically realize about floating damage. Is gonna be have to be a lot more conscious, especially on our side of the board, and also realizing what um, damage they could produce, like how much they could hit us for. And I think that's why, just to go back to another card, Alice is another good thing. You know, just keeping things warded up. And as blue, we that's one of the things we can do is we can ward things. Um, and just keep them protected. It's really a lot of the time you think your board's really safe and you think they're so far off winning the game, and then they will play Strength Zeus or whatever they play, any way to deal damage to your board, and then they play Go-Go and then just gain a bunch of lore and start turning sideways, and then you're in a race for about they're at like 18 lore or something from that whole interaction. So it is a card that punishes you for having bigger bodies on the board, which is just nuts really the way that the game's designed. But of course we have ward characters, and I think Cogsworth, Ariel, maybe even the Alice card as well. Yeah, that I will see play. It depends. I think the card's nuts. It depends on how it actually stretches out into the blue steel matchup. It feels nuts because if you don't get the aerial, they get the ward characters down. They just get so much value from your Tamatars and Hirams. The overall, but on the flip side, you've also got cards that that got a lot less health as well. So maybe it's just about learning the matchup. But I generally think this card is going to be in every green deck. It's also just a good finisher. Say they're at a point where they need to get over the finish line versus a blue deck. They just damage a tower, play her, and gain the lore. So yeah, I think she's just really, really cracked. I put this one in there. I don't know. It's just a lot of pirate stuff, and the stats on this just seem nuts. Whenever one of your pirate characters requests file location, draw a card. I don't know. I don't think it's an amazing card, but I know people are going to try pirates again, and that's. I think you could try green blue pirates. I think that might be cool. And then you get to maybe give that like color combo a personality, like an actual representation. I don't know entirely if it's a good card. I just think the stats are really cool. I think it could be used, and I think definitely when people think of trying to make pirates work, they're going to look at this Daisy Duck card and start from there. So yeah, that's all I really have to say on that. But I don't think the card's cracked or anything. I just think people want people want tribals quite badly, and I know pirates is like the big one. I'm Still Here is just an interesting card, I think. Gaining that resist is pretty cool, especially if you were say maybe like purple steel or something like that, and you just wanted to protect your thing for like a little bit longer. Maybe it's a Smee or maybe it's one of your 1/2s and they've got like an easy trade. I just think it's a really cool card. I think it has a lot of value. It's also a song as well, so you could get something that maybe doesn't quest for much to sing to protect something that does quest for a lot, so it could quest for more the next turn, which overall should net you more lore. I think it's a very interesting card, and it also is just a cycle card as well. It's a song that cycles, so I think it has a lot of value. Not going to oversell the card. I just think it's pretty interesting, and I think people are going to really try it. Maybe as a 1 or 2 off, especially as Green Steel maybe wants to protect themselves. Maybe protect like a Diablo. Like yeah, you could sort of get Diablo to sing this, protect Diablo for a turn, for a Fire the Cannons or something like that. Especially if you're in a Steel meta. Steel Song as well. Want to protect their characters for another turn. I don't know how much I'm gonna overvalue this card. I just think it's really cool. I think you could get Cindy to sing it and protect something. Your Cindy dies, but you keep something alive for another turn. I don't know. I think there's a lot to play with there. But I'm not really gonna deck build on that too much. This is the card that's just been overly hyped, and just basically made me want to play another Hades. Um, of course, when you read it during the turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may pay 1. The first thought is to play this with green blue because then you could like utilize discarding 2 cards a turn. Maybe it's not as correct as I thought it would be because what's going to happen is you're going to do the setup for this, which is like Quill. Maybe try get like a Prince John setup, get this out, and then ink twice, and then make you discard twice, which is kind of good, yeah. And then your opponent just returns with like a removal card, like a Hades or a Big Dragon or a B Prep or something like that. Because I imagine it takes a little bit of time to set up. Yeah, I don't think it's the thing that fixes or saves blue green. I think actually overall looking at it more, It's not that amazing, but I definitely think you're going to see it for the first week or two. Blue green is a color combo that people have really wanted to work for a while, and you just see it everywhere in like content creator space or like at your locals. Like everyone just wants this color combo to work, and it's the two most powerful colors in the game, I'd imagine. Emerald is just disgustingly powerful with like loads of broken cards that are just power spiked. Sapphire as well, loads of cards in there just power spiked, and ramping meaning you just get to play at such a bigger advantage. I think overall putting them together, I don't know why they shouldn't work together. So yeah, I definitely think you're going to see this card around quite a bit. But overall, I don't know how entirely you'd build that list to make it work. I'm trying to think if Prince John into this, then Quill and then Ink to make them discard. You draw two, and then maybe Sing Sudden Chill from the Prince John to lock them out of the game if they're down to three cards. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely going to be tried. It's definitely on a lot of deck builders' radar, I know. Maui Shark, I don't know. I see this card everywhere on Lorcana too, and I hate it. I don't hate it, but I just think, why is it a 7/5? Oh, it's a 6 cost. I keep thinking it was a 5 cost, but it's a 6 cost. It's just, yeah, there's no reason for you to not slide this into a red-blue list. The average red-blue list has a lot of actions in it with visions, develop your brain, how far I go, brawl, all those things. On top of that, it could clear a castle. It's evasive, so it's probably never going to be touched. Um, it's just altogether a pretty strong card, and if you could ramp up to 6 and set this up, then you're in a really strong point where you could be gaining like just passive lore from doing things that red blue would tend to do, and if ever it needs to kill a castle, it can do. I don't really know how RP responds to this. I think maybe evasive Elsa and then buff it and run it in. Maybe a Maui's Fisher. I don't know really how you respond to this as RP. As us, I've just gone with Hades because I wanted to still, as much as I wanted to respond to this card, I wanted to respond to Basil and just all the other big cards that we still have in the game, like Clarabelle and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the card's just nuts, and we're going to see it everywhere. This is definitely one of the cards that's going to define the meta, and someone can quote me on that and tell me I'm wrong when we find out it really isn't. But for right now, I think it's just awesome. Yeah, I think RB will slide it in there, and then you can just go heavier on the actions if you want to, or you can just try it in there. The body itself, its ability is really awesome. You can keep it alive with Porpsicles. I just think the card's cracked. Tiana, this card scares the hell out of any steel player in my opinion. I think it's just a very frightening card. I think into red though, what's going to happen is the card's going to fail, not fail, I don't know. Maybe the card won't work because the same issue that has with the steel Tiana is that Brawl will just kill this. So you don't really get any of the value out of it. But into steel, this card is a real menace. So if this meta does become so heavy steel, you could easily slot this card in, and it just becomes such a problem because of when you do removal versus these versus Steel Song. A lot of the time now their characters have 4 health rather than 3. So you do your grab your swords and your Tinkerbell and you clear as much as you can, and then you have floating damage that you need to start dealing. So you start using your board like you have a Smee, you have a Broom, you have a whatever you have that's readied. But this is now going to cost you to afford you to pay 3 extra, and especially because we do the Tinkerbell grab your swords turn on that turn 6 when we have got 6 inks, we're not going to have that extra 3 ink. It really starts posing a question, and we would have to Zeus it. If we had like an extra ink, we could fire the cannons on top to like just ping it and take it out, which would be cool. But yeah, I've just found it very awkward in the maths compared to red decks. So I think they'll just go Brawl is gone. And I think that might be enough of a reason that they just won't see much play. But overall, I think the card's really cool, and maybe it does have the same issues as the other Steel Song, as the other Tiana did, the Steel version did. But yeah, I think the card's really cool, and we're definitely gonna see people try it out. Maybe as a legendary, maybe if they only pack it once or twice, they won't. They might just play one off. But I think it has so much potential. It's just Rule sadly is going to gatekeep it a little bit, maybe. Overall, the rest of the cards, there's a lot in there. I'm sure I've missed that. People want to say, why are you not talking about that? Um, I'm trying to look if there's any there that are that interesting. No, that card's pretty cool. That Simba card. I'm not going to deep dive anymore because they were really all the cards that I thought were worth checking out. But yeah, I think the set has got so much potential to shake things up. I think I didn't mention it because I don't want people to play locations, so I'm not going to hype up locations. But the location decks, they actually have lots of potential this set, especially with Rapunzel and now this card added on top. Um, they have loads of options to draw cards. They can just flood locations, which generally is what making me think about Wreck-It Ralph a bit more. But I think the set has so much potential to actually bring some light on some new decks and also reshape the ones we've got, especially for a blue steel player. We've got this whole thing of eventers. Eventers might just be a theme that they're running for the starter decks because I think the first starter deck is going to be like a blue inventor one. It's going to have like loads of cards for that. But I think that's really cool. We can use that. I think we could also build blue steel a bit more aggro based as we've got cards that I didn't overhype like this one, but you could be more an aggro based and turn sideways, but then you can also still be doing your ramp game as well into your bigger drops and your bigger answers and like a Tamatoa and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we've definitely got different directions to build it, and I'm really excited to see where people go with this. But as myself, I always go into the first week just basically updating what I had for the list prior because I'm not aware of what's good and what's not. Um, as I just finish off a set review, I just say I'm not aware of what's good or what's not. But I'm going to end it there with that. So yeah, those are just all the cards that I really think are worth mentioning, and I think that was a damn long video.